The first dilemma is from Jason. Hi Jordan, I'm having struggles, a lot of struggles, with NoFap. I have a beautiful girlfriend, I really love her, and I see my future with her. She thinks I'm not watching porn anymore, but sadly I still do and I hate it. I really want to quit and get rid of that addiction, not only because of her, but also for myself. On my longest streak, I felt great and also had more focus in school and my basketball practice and games. And since I relapsed again, I kind of have a problem with completely stopping again. I really need help because sometimes I can't even go without doing it for 2 days. So, Jason, I know that there are a lot of people watching this who are in the same boat as you are, who are struggling with that same exact addiction. In fact, I would reckon that over half of my audience probably struggles or has struggled with that exact addiction, and I'm no exception to that. So with that being said, here is something that I've learned not only from my own experiences, but from observation of other people's experiences with that addiction. A lot of times, PMO addiction is rooted in something deeper. It is simply an expression of deeply rooted trauma that you have refused to confront or that you're unaware of at this point in time. It's very, very rare that PMO addiction is simply a sensual addiction in and of itself. A lot of times, there's going to be some deeply rooted psychological and or emotional trauma that you are simply unaware of. And the key to becoming aware of that is being present. You need to be as present as possible. So when you have the urges, instead of denying them or trying to make them go away, distracting yourself, sit there and observe them. Observe the PMO urges, observe the sexual urges, and see where they lead you. Because a lot of times, if you pay attention to the feeling, that fleeting feeling, and you really truly observe it from a space of neutrality, non-judgment, that feeling will show you deeper truths about yourself that I could never tell you. Because a lot of times, it's subconscious trauma. It's trauma that, like I said, you're either unaware of, or it's trauma that you are aware of, but you're simply unwilling to face it. You're unwilling to confront it because you're afraid of the pain that it will cause you. But in a strange twist of irony, a lot of times when you have that subconscious trauma and you're suppressing it, you identify with it. And because you identify with it, you act in accordance with that identity. Hence, you relapsing on NoFap, you being addicted to pornography or other vices that are self-destructive in their nature. And that's the key, okay? You have to look beyond the act itself and figure out the underlying cause. What are you trying to distract yourself from? A lot of times, when the projection of this trauma is sexual, the trauma itself is sexual in nature as well. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you were subject to sexual assault or sexual abuse as a child, but it could be certain sexual experiences or exposure to sexual experiences that you had as a child that you never fully came to terms with. And this is your way of kind of not just ignoring it, but exploring it in a way that doesn't require you to face the pain of not understanding that experience. Now, like I said, I can't tell you exactly what that is for you. That's something that only you can find out for yourself because I don't know anything else about your life other than this dilemma and the fact that you watch my videos. But what I can tell you is that your PMO addiction is not just a PMO addiction. It's an addiction to suffering. Suffering and pleasure, the pain and pleasure cycle. And what you have to understand is that until you find the core of your suffering, you will never overcome your PMO addiction. So start doing the shadow work. The next time you get the urges, just be present with them, observe them, and let them take you to the source. The next dilemma is from Levi G. Hey Jordan, about a year ago, I had extreme anger management issues. I saved in every single bad thing that happened to me, and I would unleash all of that anger at once, several times. My girlfriend left me because of it. After being on self-improvement for more than 7 months, a lot of my anger issues have subsided, but I still have some deeply rooted issues that I have yet to tame. At school today, I was put down by several events and interactions that shut me down. When I was walking in the hallway, one of my friends started semi-aggressively leaning against me as we walked. He knew I was mad and wanted to push me because he knows I've never done anything to anyone who tried to mess with me. I thought about attacking him and unleashing all of my anger on him, things like stomping on his face, which is a scary scene to think about now. Essentially, should I start doing things to people when they try to mess with me so they know not to do it? Or should I just continue to take it and try to control my festering anger? So Levi, the same thing applies to you. You don't just have anger management problems. Okay, these surface level situations, such as you being mad at your friend or you being mad at the events that occurred on that particular day, are simply reflections and projections of something much, much deeper. And you said it yourself. You have a tendency to suppress your anger as opposed to accepting your anger. Now, I understand that the notion of accepting your anger seems like a very counterintuitive way of overcoming your anger, because in your mind, you probably conflate accepting your anger with acting your anger out. But a lot of times, it's the exact opposite. It's the refusal to accept your anger that drives you to express it in subconscious ways. In the same way that having trauma, deeply rooted trauma, can present itself in a PMO addiction, you having deeply rooted anger can present itself in you pressing people in the mall at 4:30 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon. If you know, you know. You have to confront your anger, and that starts with not resisting your anger, surrendering to your anger. Like I said, that doesn't mean that you act your anger out, but it simply means that you're present with your anger and you follow it to the source. You follow it to the source. And a lot of times, okay, when you have this subconscious inner child trauma, it occurs in your formative years, which is from the time that you're born to age 8 or 9. That is when your brain is developing at its fastest, and that's when you draw the largest conclusions with very, very minimal context, because as a child, you don't necessarily have the intelligence to use logic, to utilize logic in the way that you need to draw reasonable conclusions. Instead, you draw very big and definitive conclusions about the world and about yourself that can be very, very limiting as you progress in your life, and can even present themselves in dangerous ways. This is how a lot of school shooters or mass murderers are created. This is how a lot of killers, a lot of shooters from the hood are created, is inner child trauma that is simply suppressed and ignored. You can't ignore and suppress your trauma, or at some point it will act itself out through you. Okay, when you ignore a child, the child is going to keep crying. It's going to keep doing everything in its power to get your attention. In the same way, if you ignore your inner child will do everything in its power to get your attention. And a lot of times, its means of getting your attention can get you, the adult version of yourself or the adolescent version of yourself, in great trouble. Or, like I said, you can put other people in positions to get themselves in trouble, i.e., you going around in the mall at 4:30 p.m. on a Wednesday pressing random civilians. In other words, you need to go within, and the only portal within is the present moment. When you reject and suppress and resist your anger, you are closing the portal into your deeper self, into your inner child. The only way you can connect with your inner child is by being present, taking the feeling of anger whenever you feel it, and going deep within. Okay, using that feeling to lead you into the deeper feeling. And a lot of times, what you'll realize is that all of your traumas, all of the different projections of your trauma, say for example, if you have anger issues, if you have an avoidant attachment style, if you have a PMO addiction or any other addictions, a lot of times all of these different vices, all of these different projections lead back to the same place. It's sort of like if you take 7 different people, one on each continent on the planet, and you have all of them start digging. Hypothetically speaking, if they all continue to dig nonstop, they're all going to reach the same core. And in the same way, if you use any of your traumas as a portal into your deeper self, they will all lead back to the same core traumatic event. Now, like I said, I can't tell you what that is for you, but a lot of times it goes back to your formative years, and it goes back to something that in your mind at this point, you might have already rationalized, but you've never made your peace with. So it can be something very, very small. Something as small as a bully that you had when you were 5 years old that you never got over. And now you project that pain onto other people. It can be something that's very, very minuscule at this chapter in your life, but at the time, it was absolutely emotionally devastating for you. So you have to keep an open mind and be present with your trauma. And I understand that it's a very uncomfortable experience, but the alternative is much, much worse. With that being said, the next dilemma is from Jose. Hey Jordan, so I have a dilemma which I sort of know the answer to already. I think I just need someone as educated in this sort of thing as you to tell me in order to really understand the answer. So I had a girlfriend that I really enjoyed spending time with, and the relationship went really well, but she lives 2 hours away and works on weekends. She has a cottage in my town. That's how we met. So we basically were forced into an all-online relationship. Texting/FaceTiming didn't give me enough to want to continue the relationship, so I broke up with her, and since she wasn't ever around, I got over her super quickly and everything was fine. A couple of weeks later, she asked to get back together and I said no because I knew the online thing wouldn't work, but I felt horrible for denying her. I guess I'm just a sympathetic guy, and said we can always be friends. I think she took that and ran with it because she then started talking with my friend. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. She made it extremely obvious she wanted to hang with my friend whenever she came up to my cottage next. Luckily, my friend is a real one and denied that. Then last week, she came to town and asked my friend to hang again. It was still a no, so she decided to go up to some random guys from my high school and hang with them for the night. I knew them, but she didn't since she isn't from here. I was with a group of friends at the time and I told them what my ex and her friend were up to. We all joked about it, but a couple of my friends were on her ass about hanging out with people from my town and made her feel bad for doing it. Her hanging with my friends and people from my town gave me a huge feeling of angst. I knew I didn't have feelings anymore, but it felt like she was invading my life when she was supposed to be living far away. I did some thinking and realized that I shouldn't judge and that she can hang with whoever she wants, but clearly my friends didn't feel that way and they made her feel horrible for hanging with these other guys. Her and I had a FaceTime talk about the whole situation and I tried to apologize on their and my behalfs, but she still seemed to feel like she did something wrong. Her and I are on good terms, but ever since that call, I felt shitty about how the whole situation went down. I think knowing she still wants me back, yes, she still likes me, is adding to the guilt. The guilt is eating me up inside, and now all of a sudden, I almost want her back purely because I feel bad, at least I think. What's your take on the whole situation, and how do I make this guilt go away? Thanks, and sorry for the length. Keep inspiring. So, Jose, first of all, I want to tell you this. It is okay to feel bad about making the right decision. If you felt like you weren't getting what you needed out of that relationship or what you wanted out of that relationship, and long distance simply wasn't working for you, then you had every right to end that relationship. And from what I can tell, okay, I don't have all of the details, but from what I can tell, it seems like you're a very reasonable person. And you seem to be very, very mature in the sense that her antics, okay, those were clearly antics on her behalf that she was using to get your attention. But her antics didn't really seem to bother you that much. And that's good. That's very, very good. Because what you have to understand is that when somebody does things like that, it's because they're trying to control you. They're trying to manipulate you. Now, I'm not saying that she had malicious intent behind it, but when you broke up with her, you exposed her insecurities. And the reason why I know this is because I've been rejected in the past and I did the same sort of thing. Not to that same extent. I never actually got at somebody's friend or anything like that, but I've come on this channel and made videos and done a lot of different things to subconsciously try to get the people's attention. Now, with that being said, you would be doing not only her, but you would be doing yourself a disservice to get back with her because you feel pity for her. Do not ever get with somebody out of pity. You're not going to develop a healthy or sustainable relationship with somebody if the foundation is rooted in pity. Pity cannot be the foundation of a relationship. Love must be the foundation of a relationship. Now, I do think that it's really, really good that you didn't hold her antics against her, because I feel like the way that your friends reacted, that was pretty immature as well. Okay, what she did was immature and the way that your friends reacted was immature. I'm saying all of this to say that you handled the situation correctly. I feel like you handled the situation correctly, but at the same time, I do not think you should get back with her, at least for that reason. I'm not saying you shouldn't get back with her. If you still have chemistry, if you still have that sort of connection with her, that you feel like you'd want to be with her and you see a future with her, then yeah, get back with her. But don't do it just because you feel bad for her.